alert. President Biden getting blasted in brand new Fox polling, with his approval numbers taking a big hit as voters voice serious concerns about his leadership on a host of key issues. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, and here today, my co-host Harris Faulkner, Fox News chief legal correspondent and anchor of Fox News at Night, Shannon Bream, Fox News contributor and syndicated radio host Leslie Marshall, and in the center virtual seat, joining us again, Fox Nation host, retired USMC bomb tech and Fox News contributor Joey Jones. President Biden has been in office for less than 6 months, and in that time, the number of illegal migrant crossings coming over the southern border has skyrocketed. Gun violence is also way up, as are prices on just about everything. And voters have taken notice. Check out these new Fox polls, which show most of those surveyed disapprove rather than approve of the way the president has handled all of that. Biden is down 10 points since June on his handling of the economy, as he takes the biggest hit on immigration and crime. Joey, it appears the honeymoon is over. I mean, he's underwater on immigration, on crime, on the economy. We'll pop this poll up here on his 33% of Democrats and 49% of Republicans think the economy is in poor condition. I mean, you combine that, it's about 71% of voters who say it is in poor or only fair condition. I mean, the economy is one of the biggest issues, and it appears that he's struggling even there.
No, absolutely. If you go to the gas pump, you see it. And that's one of the markers we always call to, because it's something that no matter what kind of money you make, you have to go buy gas. And it's an equalizer. And you see the prices going up. And then on top of that, I just had family in town from Denver looking to buy a house. The housing market is in disarray. It's not a buyer's market or a seller's market. It's a get in where you can market. And just building materials are up. So I've got family that want to build a house and they can't, because it's going to cost them $80,000 more in material to build the same house than a year ago. These things matter, and people pay attention to it. So no matter how much you might like the rhetoric coming out of a politician's mouth, it's when it hits your pocketbook and your daily life, and it prevents you from making that next step in life. That's when you care, and that's what these polls reflect.
That's right. And Shannon, on that point about inflation, voters are really taking notice. We have another poll that will pop up from Fox News, our own original polling. 86% are concerned about inflation. 86%. It's hard to get 86% of voters to agree on anything. And then when you look at issue by issue, or rather product by product, grocery prices, 70% say it's caused hardship for their families. Gas prices, 67% say it's caused hardship. And then housing costs, 53%. I mean, on every metric here, voters are taking notice. They are struggling just to pay the bills on things as simple as gas.
Yeah, and those are the real world impacts when people have to try to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head and keep their car getting them to and from work and their kids to school. That's real world stuff that everybody's got to deal with. You mentioned that number, 86% worried about inflation. You're right. It's hard to get Americans to agree on, 86% of us, on anything. But it's notable that there are voices across the political spectrum. Larry Summers, who was the Treasury Secretary, who also was a top economic advisor in the Obama-Biden administration, continues to warn about this issue of inflation. He is not a conservative. He is not a right-wing nut job, if people like to use those kinds of terms. This is somebody on the other end of the political spectrum who is warning this administration. You heard the president come out yesterday and say, yeah, the consumer price index is up 5.4% over last July, what people pay for basic things. He said, now, if you take out everything that's affected by COVID, the numbers aren't that bad. Well, we can't take out what's affected by COVID. I mean, regular Americans have to go to the grocery and they have to gas up their car. So this is a problem for the administration.
It is a big problem, and it's 79% who blame the economic policies, of the federal government. So people are tying the prices at the pump to economic policies. They're understanding why this is happening. And Leslie, when you move to crime, his approval rating is in the 30% range on the issue of crime. Should he have waited so long, 6 months into his presidency, to give an address on crime?
Well, considering the needle hasn't moved for President Biden either up or down in 7 months, and I think we wouldn't even be talking about this except for the fact that it has now moved for the first time in 7 months. If you look at the numbers and you look at how much of a drop These are not significant drops. Despite the erosion, he's still very popular. In this very Fox News poll that we're talking about, more than half of American families do feel financially comfortable. And it is COVID, not 79%, more than 80%, upwards of 85%, 86%, that blame the pandemic, not the president, not even Congress and our elected officials for this. And then when we look at certain sectors of the economy, let's look at retail, for example. Walmart, 500,000 hires since March. Dollar Store, 20,000 hires. More stores hiring and more stores being opened. And then when you have infrastructure hopefully going to go all the way to the finish line, I do think that some of these polls are going to be looked at in a few weeks, if not next month, as outliers.
Harris, in all due respect to Leslie, I think we just saw what the Democrats' messaging will be for the midterms, which is when crime is brought up, the #1 issue to voters, we know his approval's in the 30% range, they're going to pivot to other issues. They're ignoring the crime situation, immigration as well. His approval is in the 30s, and Democrats are just turning their head, but I don't think voters will. What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, all due respect to Leslie, did her homework on all those numbers. The one number that stands out to me is that food prices number. Because gasoline is important. I could ride my bike to the store no matter how far I had to go to feed my little ones. But when I get there, if I can't buy milk and bread, I'm in trouble. And that's not overselling it. You know, we've had an economy that's been limping in the decisions by this president in this one category, prices going up, people not actually wanting to take those jobs. Yeah, they hired 500. You know, we have 10.5 million job openings. That's like a teardrop in the ocean right there, Leslie. So my concern is that longevity of this process of paying people to have stayed home, and then now they have to re-engage under pressure with a changing landscape of who's going to wear a mask, who's going to be allowed back into work, who's going to do this, who's going to do that, because COVID is spiking, all things changing. And now when I finally get to the store on Harris's bicycle, I can't buy the bread and milk. This will stick. I don't care what they pivot to. I really don't care what numbers Leslie and others come up with, because she's great at doing that. They can do their jobs. The problem is they can't seem to feed us. And you know what? We don't want them to. We want to be able to feed ourselves. We want a situation where we can go to the store and afford things. So the inflation nation cannot be something that sustains beyond our ability to take care of ourselves. I envision Republicans picking up on some messaging and strategy and fighting against this mightily. And 2022 is going to get here like that.
Yes, and this is before we have $5 trillion when you combine the infrastructure package and the $3.5 trillion budget. This is before we have nearly $5 trillion in more spending. Joey, people are, I think, seeing something happen in their lives where they're seeing prices go up, they're seeing crime come to their neighborhoods, and then they send their kids to school where they're being taught critical race theory, this pernicious ideology. In aggregate, the reality Americans are facing, I don't think they're going to like what they see. And when you put on top of that mask on your children and no freedom or choice in that matter for the parents, I think this is a hurricane brewing ahead of next November. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the biggest pandemic we have is a pandemic of public trust. I mean, look no further than the community of Georgetown in Washington, D.C. to know that the most bleeding heart liberals in the country still want safety and security. That's why they won't let the metro come to town. That's just the truth of it. And so if President Trump were still president, there are a lot of people that say inflation would have happened either way. Okay, let's say inflation would have happened. You wouldn't have people worried about the safety of their neighborhoods. You wouldn't have a surge at the border. And if you did, you'd have a competent individual taking care of it, not someone that feeds into it, someone that favors and says, this is literally the message across the country by Democratic leaders. There might be bad actors among the police force, so let's treat them bad. There might be good intentions among the bad actors, so let's treat them good. That's an inverse of how this country works, and that's the message that they send. It's better to be a criminal today than it's ever been in this country, because there are more opportunities to get away from it or demonize a police officer that tried to apprehend you. That's not safety and security, which, in my opinion, is the primary objective of our government, to give us the security to collect and own what is ours and live our life happily. And that's exactly where this administration has failed us most. They've done it at the border, they've done it abroad, and now they're doing it with our police force.
Wow, job openings for the criminals too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, it's a real tragedy. It's the #1 issue to voters. We will see what happens next November. Democrats in a world of trouble.